Say something?
You almost threw me off the road.
Thanks for saving my life.
You're welcome. The biggest pleasure and privilege of making documentary film is the process of discovery. Good surprises, bad surprises, they're both equally rewarding in their own way. But never have we ever come across a discovery as disturbing as what we found in Washington, D.C.
Why is it that 88% of people experiencing homelessness in the District of Columbia identify as Black or African American, and the general population is 44% identify as Black or African American?
Close to 100% of families experiencing homelessness are Black. People experiencing homelessness are nearly doubly overrepresented in our homelessness crisis.
At first, we thought it was just a terrible fact. But then we went to Milwaukee.
When we looked at the individuals we served, 75% of our clients were African American. When we look at our eviction prevention program, it was close to 80%.
Then Atlanta. What percentage of your homeless population in Atlanta is Black?
90%.
No way. That's the winner. DC is 88.6% or whatever, and Milwaukee 75%.
Yeah, Detroit is up there too. We're 89, but yes.
That's beyond disgraceful.
It was beginning to look more and more like a trend, so we dug deeper. We looked at the numbers of African American populations in a few cities and compared them to the rate of those cities' Black homeless populations. And every single time, the rate of Black folks experiencing homelessness was 2, 3, sometimes 8 times the rate of the African American general population.
So if you look at poverty for whites in America, it goes down. And then for homelessness, it goes way down. If you look at that same statistic for African Americans, it goes up. So the poverty level goes up as opposed to the general population. And for homelessness, it goes way up. And so it isn't poverty that is the generator, it is something else. We believe that something else is racism.
This is actually the systems that founded this country working exactly as they were intended to do, to prioritize wealth and safety and resources for white people while deprioritizing those things for people of color, especially Black people.
In Philadelphia, we interviewed Dennis Culhane, the top researcher on homelessness in the United States. He briefs Congress every year.
In a recent study we did, we found that the cost of the shelter system is $10.5 billion a year, about $27,000 per bed per year. But half of the single adults, they don't even sleep in one of these facilities. It's inefficient, it's ineffective. What hopefully, your film will do is help people understand that maybe society thinks shelters are a solution, but the shelters don't think they're the solution, and the people who stay in them actually think that they're the problem.
Housing not only is the most effective solution to homelessness, it is the most cost-effective solution to homelessness. Shelter was never supposed to be the ultimate solution to homelessness, and people were not supposed to have lived in shelters for long periods of time the way they do now.
The key is there has to be some next step. There has to be a program that's helping people end their homelessness, and that's what is missing.
So the amount of money that's being
on this
racked
call,
up right now.
On this call, right. $10,000, maybe $15,000. That's already a year's rent for one of those people in that campsite. Just this one call. 15 grand, given all the personnel and the trucks, and we're just pouring money into the emergency response, but never actually addressing the heart of the issue, which is the fact that they're still homeless with no housing, and that's what's perpetuating it. So by the end of the year, you've spent $50,000 per person in that encampment, and they've got nothing. And we've just wasted all that money on emergency response when we could have housed them easily and provided the service support for those that need it.
And about how much would that cost versus the $50,000 per person?
25, 30.
The most interesting thing about Milwaukee is how they're addressing their homelessness issue.
It can't just be government or activists or nonprofits. If you really want to change your community, You have to have everybody buy in.
Jim and I would go around and talk to people about Housing First in early 2015. Got a lot of blank stares, a lot of why would my taxpayer dollars go to this?
A lot of skepticism, especially in the business community. But in a few months, businesses downtown totally agree that this is the way to go.
The King Park homeless encampment. We went from 20 plus tents all the way down to 2. Now I think we're down to 0. And those people got the help they need. It wasn't just pushing them off somewhere in a different community, different neighborhood.
And as a representative of the business community, you're saying all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Our last point in time count had 17 unsheltered individuals, which was about a 70% reduction from the year before.
45% decrease in homelessness in our community since we've started the Housing First model. I firmly, to my grave, believe in this model.
We're gathering phenomenal content, sometimes shocking.
There was a homeless guy in Seattle who froze to death outside, and they just walked over his body like it was nothing.
My father ran a child pedo ring. I was the main victim.
Other times, somewhat lighthearted.
You're not an alcoholic.
No.
You're not a drug addict.
No.
Do you have a serious mental illness?
No, not at all.
You don't have anything?
Nothing. I don't have high blood pressure or cholesterol. Diabetes, I'm good.
Here on the street, I guess the bigger tent you got, it's like a type of wealth, I guess.
I'm so glad I'm not out here no more, man. Gosh, man. I live in a complex now with doctors and lawyers and federal police. I have a vehicle, I have to pay insurance, I have electric, water bill, they charge me for trash. I pay $200 to park. My biggest obstacle right now is finding permanent employment. And when I do, my whole life gonna change.
We recently visited Seattle, where we spent a few days filming and participating in the Housing First Partners Conference.
Do you know that there is a movement against Housing First?
No, I was not aware that there's a movement.
There are dark forces out there that are trying to undermine the Housing First approach.
We're challenging the status quo in a way that hasn't been before, and we're getting a lot of blowback. So there's a kind of a narrative battle going on.
The Housing First, the model is housing and services.
No, it's not.
I promise you it is.
No, it's not. This is where I have to argue. The federal government says that's not true.
Well, who cares what they say? They're not the one who developed the program.
But don't say Housing First without saying Housing First model or Housing First federal law, because they're completely different.
The support services are what make the model successful.
I was privileged to be on the stage.
And I was privileged to be below the stage.
Yeah, we were both privileged to be part of the discussion, as it aligns perfectly with the film that we're making.
We're all here because we know that we have an approach that works.
Housing First has been a tremendous success. You all know that. In the work you do every day, you see hundreds of thousands of people housed across this country.
And now here we are in 2022 with people responding to the crisis of today saying that Housing First doesn't work.
And now we have well-funded and sophisticated entities, and they are selling pro-criminalization, anti-Housing First legislative packages to state houses across the country.
We've seen quite a few bills this year to completely dismantle our Housing First system.
I hear people say, look, you've been doing Housing First for 10, 15, 20 years, and we still have homelessness, therefore Housing First is failing. Or even worse, Housing First is causing homelessness.
If they can mischaracterize Housing First as, look what they're doing, giving freebies to people without holding them accountable, and they're using your tax dollars to do it, they can score points with the public when the public doesn't understand what it really means.
It really doesn't matter that this is by far the best way to address homelessness. It doesn't matter unless you tell the story in a way that the public will receive it. The good news is that this story hasn't been told yet.
And that's exactly why we're making our film, to help the public witness the effective way of addressing homelessness and to show a hopeful path forward. We should add that this project is no longer just a film. Once the film is complete, we will follow it up with a massive social impact campaign, which will include at least 40 screenings that we and a host of other partners are going to put together all over the country with a film screening, panel discussions, celebrity entertainment, all that stuff. In other words, this issue, the issue of homelessness, will never have seen what's about to pop off.
You get the public on board, we're going to solve it. That's the deal. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
The power of film.
Power of film.